My name is Donald. I am 56 years old. This is my first time trying to explain my life. I am married to Lorraine, 45 years old, and we have a daughter, 13 years old. This is something that happened a few months ago. My wife and I were visiting Istanbul along with our daughter. We were part of a big group, 3 families, and around 16 people in all. The trip had come to an end, and we were supposed to return together. We all had gathered at the Istanbul airport for our return back to Chicago. It is an 11-hour flight. We all gathered and accounted for everyone. The flight was delayed by 6 hours. Since we still had 6 hours till our flight, we all went to the lounge, and to our surprise, it was empty. We were the only people there. Everyone gathered and started chatting, all smiles and stories of Turkey and the good food we had. I went for a smoke and returned after 15 minutes. As I walked close to my wife, I saw a slim figure near her. As I walked closer, my heart started beating faster, not because of the nicotine, but this was something else. The clothes. As I got closer, the faster it beat. I could almost hear my heart trying to jump out of my chest. My mind went blank and took me back 20 years. I was holding her hand. I was right there in the church. She was right beside me. I said, "I do," and then kissed her. I took her home. We had a life together. Suddenly, I was right back in the lounge. I walked near my wife and told her I wanted to get some air and walked out. I did not look at the woman who was now talking to my wife. As I walked out, the floodgates to my memories opened up. She was right there. She was happy. I was happy. I closed my eyes, and I was back in Columbus, GA, beside the Chattahoochee River. We sat there often. Her name is Maria. She is my life. I have always loved her, ever since I saw her in college. She was mine. We got married and moved in together. Married life started great. I started working as a journalist and she started as a financial expert. My job required me to travel a lot. I was going places, covering stories from war to famine. All this while, I always kept in touch with her. Her sparkling eyes made my day. When I was at home, we spent our time making love and enjoying great food. She used to cook, and it was delicious. "Will you always love me like this?" Maria asked while looking into my eyes. I stroked her bare back and told her forever and ever. The first 2 years of our lives went by smoothly, and it never felt like there would ever be any trouble in paradise. We decided to delay having kids as we needed to make a name in our careers. We wanted to make good money and settle down. The only trouble that we had was that we were not able to spend time with each other. I traveled often. Maria's job also required her to travel. The only point of discontent that we had was my mother. She lived alone and often wanted to see me. My wife never liked her. I never asked why. My mother was a very soft and caring person. I tried to keep them separated and keep a balance between them. It was in the month of January that my mother fell ill. I told my wife I'm going to her so that I can care for her. She was not happy as I had just come home from covering a story in Iraq. We had an argument as she wanted me to hire help for my mother and not go personally. I told her that my mother is old, and this might be the last time that I see her alive. Maria was unhappy, but I did not bother with that. 3 days later, my mother died in my arms. I was devastated. After her burial, I came back home, and Maria once again complained about my mother. I was shocked and could not understand what she was trying to say. She put us in so much trouble. She should have been in the hospital right from the start. I was silent and was still trying to understand what Maria would get from demeaning a dead person. I shot back. She is dead. She will not come back and respond. So zip it. Maria got angry, and that week we did not speak to each other. I broke the ice by taking her out for dinner. That night we made love. The next week I went out to Afghanistan, covering the historic Silk Road. Maria, meanwhile, was getting her promotions and growing her salary. I returned 2 weeks later. This will be the time that when in Afghanistan I reached home and Maria, like always, greeted me with a big hug and a sloppy kiss. At dinner, I saw her a bit tensed. "We need to have some changes in our lives," she spoke. "What changes do you want?" I asked. "You being away from home for long durations is not helping me. There are days that I long for your touch and I come home to an empty bed. I don't want to cheat on you, so either find a job that keeps you near me or find me a job so that I can travel with you." I was in a fix, but at the same time, I was happy that she was honest and spoke the truth. I told her that I will find another job. The topic was over, and the next morning I resigned from my job and started looking for a job close to home. I soon found one at the local TV channel. It did not pay as much as my previous job, but kept me near Maria. "Your salary is down by 30%. Are you kidding me?" She was angry when I told her about my job. I tried to explain that this would be a downside for a stationary job. Women, no matter how educated and intelligent they are, at times do not want to acknowledge facts and still want things to go their way. It would not be possible to get a stationary job and still get a hike unless you change your profession. She was upset that I now brought less to the home, and her lifestyle would be impacted somehow. We went on with that. Over the next 3 months, things started to go downhill. We were talking less, and at nights we rarely had any action. Her demeanor had changed from loving wife to nagging. She could find faults in everything, and there was not a single day that I would go to bed not angry. It got so bad that one night she asked me to stop breathing as my breathing was disturbing her sleep. A few days later, I could not find my phone, so I picked up my wife's phone to call my number. I found her phone locked. It was something new. I did not have any lock on my phone, and as far as I remember, she never had any lock on hers. Why was there a lock? Is she hiding something? It was a Thursday night. She came back after a late-night party with her office girls. I heard the doorbell and opened the door. She stood there in a black dress, her hair all disturbed. No lipstick. "What happened to you?" I asked and held her. I danced a bit too much and now I am tired. I guided her to her bedroom. She removed her dress to change into her usual nightdress. That was a big mistake. She had no panties and I could see a bruise on her left thigh. She never goes out without her panties. Did she go commando today, or did she lose them somewhere? That night I could not sleep and just lay there. Being a journalist by nature, I wanted to know the truth. I know a lot of people who can help me find it out, but I knew my stuff and needed no help. 3 weeks later I was outside the Motel 6 at Victory Drive. It was 2:30 p.m., and I tracked Maria's car to this motel. I walked towards room number 12, opened the lock, and saw the monitor right across the door in the other room. There was my beloved wife. There she was on all fours, and her blonde lover in action. Her blonde lover, Steve Bauman, my dear enemy from college, always had the hots for Maria, and once even took her out for a date before Maria started dating me. Good. Maria screamed in ecstasy. Steve obliged. By now my tears no longer flowed. I was dead inside. My heart ached. 3 weeks of investigation and running around Maria did yield results. Results that I never wanted. I wanted to break open the door and do something very stupid, but I had promised the motel manager that I would refrain from violence. He was paying back for an old favor and put up a single condition: no violence and no property damage. He agreed and personally helped me put the recording devices in the room, but violence was never off the table outside the motel. I smiled and walked out of the motel, got in my car, and parked right behind the only Mustang that was parked in the parking lot. It belonged to Steve. I took out my dear old ice pick and decorated all 4 tires. I waited. After 1 hour, they came out, Steve holding Maria by her bare waist. I took that on camera. I put my camera back and came out of my truck. I walked towards them and stood right in front of them. Maria was silent, looking like she saw a ghost. Steve had a sinister grin on his face, a symbol of taking another man's wife. He still held her by the waist. Maria was meekly trying to remove his hand. "Hey, Don." She smiled. "What are you doing here?" I stared back at her. She went silent. She tried again. "I can explain. It's not what you think." I'm not thinking, just observing. My eyes pointed at Steve's hand on her waist. "I guess he has taken away my wife." I smiled. "No, it's not that. We just had a meeting here," she spoke. "A meeting involved getting on all fours and getting drilled from behind. Did he do you good?" I asked. She gasped as just a few minutes ago she had uttered the same words. "All your actions are on video and will be going to your office, and I will make sure it goes to all our friends and family. Yes, it will be going to Linda and her dad." Steve screamed, "Leave Linda out of this." "Yes, she has no business in this," Maria added. "Her husband is screwing my wife. So yes, we have a lot of business, unfinished ones to be precise." I smiled and added, "Linda has already seen your action as it happened and is just waiting for the copy of the video so that she can drag your sorry self to court for a divorce. If I were you, I would prepare myself to say goodbye to dear old Mustang, as it will be sold out to pay for the settlement." He was furious now and lunged at me. "Big mistake. Years of traveling to places like Iraq and Afghanistan made me a tough man. I had been among warriors, fighters, and people who were trained to kill. Did they teach me a few tricks?" He threw a right hand and I blocked it, ducked forward, and landed my left on his chin. He dropped like a bag of potatoes. He got up, wobbled a few steps towards me only to get an uppercut on the chin. He did not get up. He lay there, out cold. Maria stood there, horrified. I looked at her and told her to get in the truck. She got in the truck and we drove off. We did not reach home. We went straight to my lawyer. Maria tried to ask, but I just held up my hand. We walked into the office and were asked to move to the large conference room. We both sat on opposite sides of the table. The silence was dreadful. Soon Ron Freeman, my lawyer, walked into the room and handed an envelope to Maria. "You have been served. Now let me explain the terms. We have filed for divorce based on irreconcilable differences. You guys hold no property. There is nothing to discuss there. His mother's house is yet to be legally transferred in his name, so you will not claim that. He will give you half of the money from your joint account. As we speak, the account has exactly half the money it had in the morning, so you may withdraw it. Since you earn more than him, there is no alimony. There is nothing else from my end." Ron left the room. Maria held the envelope and looked at me. I finally spoke. "In case you want to contest it, I will change the reason for the divorce to adultery, and make sure that every soul that knows your name will know of your cheating exploits. Every recording I have will be shared on all social media platforms. I will send this to your office and make sure that your cheating self is fired and you get no recommendation anywhere. If you run away to a different city, I will follow you and make sure the rest of your life is spent in fear of your name being tarnished. I hope I am clear." She nodded. I got up and walked out. She stood up and spoke. "Don't you want to know why I did it? You wanted a lifestyle that I cannot provide. You wanted to fly high, but wanted someone at home. When you land back, you wanted happiness, but were not willing to pay the price for it. Fast cars, big fancy hotels, and good food. Your blondie lover gave you everything that I could not. You think that right, isn't it? I'm not sure if you will understand it or not, but he was just paying for his fun time. He was already married and was looking for a cheap source of entertainment. How long would that have lasted? A few months. Then what would you have gone out hunting for? Another lover, then another. Your happiness is just a state of mind. You can be happy with less, or you can be sad with a lot. Today you stand here with an envelope in your hand and nothing else. Have a nice day, Maria." I left. I saw her in the court a few months later. Never spoke to her, never saw her eyes. Just the court's orders. Divorce granted. Steve never filed any complaint against me. Even if he had, he would have lost. There were cameras in the parking lot, and he would have come out as the aggressor. I did send Linda the videos and all the evidence of Steve's adultery. She did not waste time with him. Sold the house and divorced him. I did hear a rumor that he was beaten up by Linda's brothers and spent a few days with some broken bones. He was divorced and even lost his job. Linda's father was a connected man. Steve did sell his Mustang to pay for his settlement. I never told this to anyone, but Linda's father wanted to punish Maria as well. Linda stopped them. I left my job and soon enough was hired back in my old job, but in a different city. Life went on. Here I am today at Istanbul Airport, chief journalist for a big magazine, loads of money, a great faithful wife, and an amazing daughter. I walked back into the lounge. My wife was still talking to her. Hours passed. I stayed away from my wife. She was constantly talking to Maria and stealing glances at me. I was worried. I never hid my past from my wife, but I don't know what Maria will plan in her mind. A few hours later, I checked with the airport officials, and they confirmed the departure time. We got in the boarding queue, and after some grueling minutes, I was finally on the flight and sitting right beside my wife. She was smiling, and her smile was a lot different than usual. I asked her what was the discussion with that lady. "Oh, that lady, your ex-wife, Maria." I was saying thanks. I gave a puzzled look. "Thanks?" I asked. "If she had not screwed up, how would I have got you?" She smiled. "Did she tell you that?" I asked. "No, she never talked about you. I read the court's orders in your investigative material. They were in the attic." "What were you two talking about?" "Nothing. I was just listening to how she missed her ex-husband and how she would trade everything to get a life like mine." I smiled, closed my eyes, and pushed back into my chair. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.